Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of HorrorHands, and for this video I'm going to be talking about Scalpel. So this is another movie that's been released by Arrow, and it's one that I'd never heard of until buying it recently, and I was really impressed with this film. I thought it was a brilliant movie, so I've just come on here to talk a little bit about it. And I've seen this quite a bit recently when Arrow and other companies they release an obscure film, and they always say that it's sort of like it's criminally overlooked and it's faded into obscurity, and now this is the time to revisit it or to discover it in the first place. And a lot of the time I watch these movies and they're actually quite crap, and I can see why they faded into obscurity. But with Scalpel, I thought it was absolutely a brilliant film. It was such a well-made movie. And I can't really understand why this one did fade into obscurity in the first place. But I'm really glad that Arrow have got it and have released it on Blu-ray. Because, yeah, I thought it was amazing. It's got a really good story, which I'll talk about in a minute. But it's also a very clever film. Really well made, very well acted. The cast in this did a fantastic job, and yeah, this one definitely deserves a bit more recognition. So the story of this is there's this plastic surgeon played by Robert Langsing who has a very shady past. There's something not quite right about him. There's a few things that have happened, a few people's deaths that he's implicated in, and yeah, he just has a very murky, untrustworthy past. And his wife she died a few years ago in a drowning accident that he may or may not be implicated in, and her wealthy father has just died. Now he hasn't left any inheritance to the surgeon because he doesn't like him. He's instead left a $5 million inheritance to the surgeon's daughter. But she has been missing for over a year because she left after her father, the surgeon, may or may not have killed her boyfriend. So you get the idea. He has a very shady past. So she's entitled to this $5 million inheritance. She's not around. She's nowhere to be seen, and hasn't been for over a year. So he has nothing. Now, by chance, one night he's driving through the city and he crosses paths with a young woman who has been beaten to a pulp in this alleyway, and her face has just completely been totaled from being beat up, and she gets slammed into this wall. So her face is just destroyed, and she's very similar to this surgeon's daughter. She's the same height and she has the same eye colour. So the surgeon hatches this idea to reconstruct her face to look the same as his daughter, and the pair of them can then inherit this $5 million and split it. So he carries out this surgery on her. She agrees to do it. They spend quite a few months while she's rehabilitating with her, getting to know his daughter's mannerisms, getting to know the family tree, so that if ever she's around with his friends and family, she can convincingly portray his daughter. So they do this, they get the money, and all seems fine. But complications arise going forward, most principally when his original daughter arrives back on the scene. And then we get this very strange, very uneasy triangle of characters who they're coexisting, but it's a tangled web of deceit and mistrust and eventually murder, which I won't go into too much because I don't want to give that aspect away. But it's such a clever film. It's a film that at times it raises more questions than what it's willing to answer, and it really leaves quite an ambiguous sort of series of events. So, for example, when his actual biological daughter comes back on the scene, you don't know what she knows. You don't know, because he's spun some kind of yarn. He said that this guy gave all his money to a university and he was just missing her, so he recreated her face. But we don't know if she believes that. We don't know if she already knows what he's done and she's plotting against him. We don't know where his loyalties lie, whether he's going to stick with this girl who he's created as his daughter, or is he going to put his allegiance back to the daughter who left him and has been estranged for a year. You just don't know. By sort of halfway through the film as well, you don't even know what woman you're watching, because his biological daughter and his created daughter, they look identical. They're played by the same actress. I can't remember her name, but she does an amazing job. But you don't know which one's which just leads to so much kind of confusion and so much kind of suspense, because you just don't know who's who. You don't know who's aligned with who, and there's talk of murder. You know that they kind of need to kill somebody in this triangle of characters because it's just getting out of hand. But yeah, it's such a gripping storyline, so well made, so well written, so well acted. Credit in particular to Robert Lansing, because he is so good as this surgeon who is very sort of morally ambiguous, very scheming, and he just looks mean, and he's not a nice guy, sort of driven by greed. So yeah, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. This is a film that's come along that I wasn't aware of, read good things about it, watched it, and then loved it. So it was a really cool viewing experience for me. I thought it was fantastic. It's not a horror film for gorehounds. It doesn't have any gore. It's not all that kind of bloodthirsty, apart from the scenes of surgery that take place early on in the film. But what it is very creepy and very unsettling. And as the film builds and builds, you just feel more and more kind of on edge of what's going on. And as the plot develops, like I say, more and more questions come about, and you can kind of look into this as deeply as you want, because there's a lot going on here that's not necessarily alluded to or concluded by the end of the film. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend it. If you want to see a thinking man's horror film that's not necessarily blood and guts and violence, then definitely check out Scalpel. I really enjoyed it. So let me know if you've seen this one and what you thought of it. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.